everyone, in this video I'm going to talk to you about what I see is going on in the world right now when it comes to the financial situation, the upcoming financial crisis, the upcoming rewrite of how money works, and the depression-like circumstances, and a couple of other things in society that I see right now. And I want to end with a few ideas of what I think might be helpful. I'm doing this video because I was asked by a couple of persons who have read the book The Devil is in the Structure, which I wrote in 2015, and they were asking me what I think is going on in the world. This could be a very long video, so I will try not to go into any details. I will try to make it as short and brief as possible. When it comes to the financial situation, I see our world as being in the economy of bubbles, where pretty much everything is in a bubble. The bond market is in a bubble that's about to burst. We have so many different bubbles. Pretty much everything today is a bubble, and a lot of new money is being created. When we look at the US, because the US is interesting because it is the reserve currency of the world, the US dollar is. And so right now a lot of US dollars are being created. A lot of people are fleeing to the dollar as a safe haven, but I believe that unfortunately, or fortunately, who knows, in the end, the economy is going to go through a crisis very soon. Because what we're seeing is a lot of new money created, and so the debt of the US is growing. It's beyond what is usually called by the IMF as reasonable, as something that you can count on being paid back. So right now, I think the debt is $23 trillion, but this is only the visual debt, but the debt, I mean the real debt, there's so much more. I think it comes to about $150 trillion, which includes Social Security, having to pay all the pensions, it's backing student loans and a lot of things. So it's completely unreasonable. I mean, if the interest rates were to go up even just a little bit, the US would automatically have to default on their debt. So it's not reasonable at all. And if you're looking at what is happening to this new money that's being created, where is it going? It's going according to a system that has been in place for a long time now. And I think we're going to see the end of maybe 50 years of an experiment in how money works, the fiat currencies, where there's nothing backing the money. And so the new money that is being created, the new dollars, and also in other places, the new money that is being created, it doesn't really go to the people. It doesn't really directly benefit anyone except for, of course, the richer part of the population. So I saw somewhere numbers showing that about 98% of the money in the US that was created went pretty much to Wall Street, and only about 2% went to the people, as for instance unemployment benefits, where you get your $600 per month. And so what we're seeing is that this money is artificially inflating the economy. And it's artificial because it's not that there is more production, greater production, more consumption. Quite the opposite. Because of COVID, there is a lot less production. Production has indeed gone down. And so the money comes in, and instead of the companies putting that money to use in the sense of producing something valuable, they pretty much buy their own stocks and make themselves look good. And so there's a lot of artificially high asset prices. Even the real estate market, it has a lot of different mechanisms right now in place that make it look like everything is fine, nothing is happening. So what I see is that we're in an economy of bubbles that are about to burst, and the US dollar, unfortunately, is also one of those. And when that happens, we're going to have to rewrite how money works. What is going to happen? I don't know. I don't know if we're going to go to the IMF's SDR, special drawing rights, as a type of new currency, and maybe part of it will be backed by gold, just to give it some semblance of something that you can trust in. But I do see this system of taking money from the poor and funneling it to the richest. And I see this system create a big gap between the absolute richest and the poorest. And it's putting more and more people into the poorest category. So right now, I heard that there were about 42 million people asking for unemployment benefits in the US. That's a record. And so what is going to happen? Well, with so many people unemployed, the companies are probably going to say that they need their workers to work for less pay. If you want to keep your job, you're going to be getting 80% of what you were getting. You're going to have to work a few hours more, and so on. So we see that the standard of living is going to go down, basically. And there's going to be more and more poor people. And the middle class is pretty much non-existent already in Europe and in the United States. So we're going to see a lot of tensions. And here's what I'm thinking about that. I see already some of those tensions erupting. Unfortunately, the main problem that I see when it comes to these class tensions is that there's a lack of the ability to organize. We saw, for instance, the movement of Black Lives Matter. This was, in my view, a symptom, an eruption that came about because of these class divisions that we have been creating, and also because of the COVID situation, people being forced to stay at home and things like that, that everything helped to spur it on. But the problem is that it's not an organized movement that has a clear vision, knows exactly what it wants, how to get what they want, and what to do about it. They're not even really talking about the major problem, underlying problem. It's more a symptom of what is going on, and not an organized movement that I can see making a substantial change in what is going on right now in the world. And the difficulty when it comes to organization comes from different places. One is, of course, the COVID situation. You're not really allowed to create large groups and organize yourself. and protest or anything like that. So that is a part. But I see another part that has been going on for a while and has resulted in a lack of ability to organize. And it has to do with the media, and it has to do with the different platforms online. They have made it very difficult for us to know what we can believe in, to know what we can trust. Is this real news? Is this fake news? What is this thing? And the platforms that we have right now, for instance, they are maximized for our time. So they want us to stay on the platform as long as possible. And when you maximize it that way, you end up creating something that will be more sensational, more radical than what you would expect, because that will create the dopamine hits and keep the person there. And so if you look at what people believe in and how the beliefs have changed over the last 15 years or so, you will see that there are so many more radical and different opinions right now. Even things like the Flat Earth Society has grown. Before it was practically extinct. There were no persons believing that the Earth is flat. And now we have a lot of them. And I can understand that, because in a way, if you have been lied to in so many different ways, then you really don't know anymore what you can believe in. So maybe the Earth really is flat. Maybe that too is true. What do I know anymore? And we don't know what to believe in. And that is a major problem when it comes to organization and when it comes to creating and actually sharing a view, because right now it also is difficult for us to actually focus on something long enough to go deep into the issue and to understand what is going on, because the headlines are so much more appealing. Headlines give us the dopamine fixes. And when we are addicted to that, when we are used to getting that, who will spend the time, the hours of reading some articles that are maybe difficult to read, complicated language, or maybe science articles with things that you have to look up all the time in order to be able to understand what they're talking about? And yet this is what you need to do in order to get a clear understanding of what really is going on. Who has time to read books, really? So we have a society where it's difficult for us to understand what is going on, and it's difficult for us to trust anyone. And so organization becomes a problem, which is a problem if we want to affect change. And why would we want to affect change? Well, right now we are moving into a society that is becoming totally surveyed in every way, financially and physically. So I believe that with the COVID, we're going to become also physically surveyed, and we will be losing the rights to our own bodies. You can look up, I can put a link to a video in which I was talking about COVID and privacy and how this works. So I believe that we are moving in a direction where we are losing our rights, privacy, and based on that we lose all of our rights, and we have a massive surveillance, and that is ever increasing, that is also becoming financial. And I think we're going to be moving to a digital, totally digital currency world, currency, maybe a digital form of SDR. And we're moving into a major depression because we are now even quickly funneling money away from the poorest to the richest and going into a major depression. And we're losing our ability to be organized. So we're losing any possibility of fighting what is going on. So what can we do? What is there to do? So should we hope for something like the New Deal in the 1930s with Roosevelt, who came up with the New Deal to take the country out of the depression? Well, to even hope for something like that, you actually need to have pressure. And there is no pressure right now in the society. At that time, you had a lot of unions. There was a lot of pressure for change. Now, there is no organization. We're moving in the opposite direction, politically, and we're losing our ability to organize ourselves. So, what can be done? What can we do? Well, the way I see it, there are two major parts to doing something. The first part is understanding what is going on, having a theoretical solution for something. Say, people are starving in the world. What do you do? Well, a theoretical solution is, well, you have to have enough food for everyone. Then you can have a solution. Yes, I mean, this is the basis. You know, you have to understand what is going on. You have to understand what you have to have in order to make, in order to create the solution. But this is only one part. The second part is that you need to have the right structure. You need to have your forces aligned so that this will happen. Because having a theoretical solution is essential, yes, but it's not enough. The second part is creating the correct structure that will help align the forces so that everything automatically will be starting to go in that direction, move in that direction. And right now, all the forces are aligned for us to continue to be losing our rights and having a worse and worse experience and worse and worse living standard, and basically losing our freedom. So these are the two parts. You have to have a theoretical idea and deep understanding and clear vision of what it is you want to happen. And then number two, you have to have a way of making it. So like with the starving people, we actually have enough food right now so that nobody would have to starve. And yet they are starving because there are forces that do not want that to happen right now. It's not an advantage for them. And so the system is not working in favor of that. So what can you do? Well, I think that if you can put your brilliance into trying to create, number one, an idea of what could actually work better, and then put most of your brilliance into the system of and the structure of aligning everything, how to make this happen. And what do I think, for instance, are some of the problems? Well, some of the problems are the structures that we have today. I mean, for instance, just the structure of a corporation is a structure that leads us not towards the good of humanity or the planet, but towards it making more money. And it becomes a monster in that sense because it has no responsibility. And we have been taking away responsibility from it so that it can, so that it's easy to give it money and have more money from it. I mean, this is what happened, for instance, 2008 with the CDOs and the big banks creating these derivatives that they knew were very bad, but they knew that they would not have any responsibility because they could just sell them off as AAA investments. And they knew that they were too big to fail, so they would be bailed out by the taxpayers. So we see that just the very structure of a corporation is problematic. So you could say, well, maybe we should do cooperatives, co-ops, right? And the persons who work there are the ones who own it. As long as you work there, you own it, or own a part of it, you have a share. But, and that is good, great. That's an idea of the first type. That's an idea that gives you, okay, so this is how we could structure things differently. But it doesn't tell you how to implement that. How do you make this a reality in the world? So I think that most of the brilliance would have to be put on that part. But I think that right now we are in a historically unique situation. Because right now, for the very first time in human known history at least, we have the ability to organize not through power, not through the hierarchy, the pyramids of power, but we can actually organize through autonomy. We have never had that option before. We have it now. And so I think that this is where I see a possible way out. Because the lack of organization makes it difficult for me to see a movement organize itself and actually make a change. But what I do see possible is people, brilliant people, working on alternative solutions, on alternative systems, and putting them out there so that we can simply opt into them and opt out of the current system that we are in. And so in order to do that, we need people who create these systems. And we need to know about these systems. We need people who let us know that they exist, let us know what advantages they have. Explain it to us how and why we need them so that we understand what the difference is. And also support the mentality that goes along with the new system. Because when you're changing a system like that, it's difficult for people. For instance, people who lived under communism and all of a sudden everything changed with the fall of the Berlin Wall and they had perhaps lived with it for 40 years, they didn't really know how to function in this new world, how things work. And so we will need also people to help prepare the mind. It's the same with slavery. Slavery is quite similar in that manner. You cannot just say, okay, now you're no longer a slave. Go and live happily. I give you nothing, I help you in no way. You're no slave now. Go out there and survive in this new system that you don't know how to survive in. That's very difficult. So we will need people helping us make that transition as well. So summarizing, I see that we're in a bubble economy. I see that it's going to burst. I see that we're going to go into depression. I don't see a solution coming because there is no pressure for a solution that is going to be beneficial to the masses. And I also don't see a way of us organizing ourselves because of a number of different reasons. And so the only solution that I can honestly see right now is one that is based on organization through autonomy and alternative ways being presented to us, and just simply opting out of the system that we're in and opting into those solutions. And these are solutions that are based on systems like Bitcoin, with the blockchain technology, and especially being decentralized, so that it's not a company, so that it's not a seat of power that is behind it. It cannot be shut down. And it can be opted into by anyone. You don't have to have a government ID, you don't have to have a COVID shot, you don't have to have anything in order to opt into that system. And so I believe that people who are creating those systems right now for us, and who are working on creating them so that the structure is beneficial, so that it's not a basic structure like that of a corporation, for instance, but one that benefits humanity. I think that these can be a way out. These can present an alternative solution, and it's for the first time in humanity that we can do something like that. So I believe that there is hope, but it all kind of depends on you, on the brilliant people who can make these changes happen, who can work on these solutions, who can work on making them easy to use for others, who can work on sharing that information with others, sharing the information about the existence of them, who can support that work taking place, and who can prepare society for the change, because it's going to mean a mental change, switch that is fundamental. In some sense, it's a little bit like going from slavery into no more slavery, and you don't know how to live in that system. So you have to prepare and learn how to survive in it and how to thrive in it. And I believe that there is hope, but it will depend on a lot of you. And I think that this time the revolution is going to be more silent than ever. It's not going to be an organized movement because we have lost our ability to organize. It's going to be a silent opting out of the upcoming system. These are some of my opinions and views. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you for watching.